an important point because, of course, with our YouTube channel, we'll get lots of input on things. And one thing that we've been seeing pop up a lot recently as we decide on various components of the boat is a lot of people suggesting, well, why don't you just use induction as your primary cooking method? And it's like, well, okay, if you're going to use induction as your primary cooking method, you're actually using diesel as your primary cooking method, the way I see it.
Well, yes and no.
Power, or what are your thoughts?
Well, it's pretty amazing. So I've done setups where, and this is on small power boats, that are 30 feet, 25 feet, where the owners want the benefit of an induction stovetop, and they simply don't have a place to install a propane oven or stovetop. And even on my own boat, I'll give you an example, and I learned that by doing work on other boats. So I have to say thank you to every single boater who's invited me on board, because that's how basically I get, the tips and tricks that we all learned from being asked questions or asked to do something are the things that I am able eventually to share with myself and others. And I'll tell you, I've had my propane system on my boat fail. Fail because of me, fail because I forgot to turn something off, fail because I forgot to fill a tank or assumed I had enough and, was too lazy to check all the time. And sometimes you're far away, and sometimes your backup tank is also empty. And running an induction stovetop is surprising. You can warm up a meal like a chili or make eggs in a matter of minutes, a soup in 2, 3, 4 minutes. And that's where on those boats, Maya, really the owner is recharging their batteries via solar panels. So effectively, they're using induction stovetop because they run it for such a short period of time. Now, you can't make a feast, right? Like, you're not going to be cooking a turkey, or
for us.
Right? Like, it's not going to be the meal of your lifetime, right? This is not a feast where you need an oven, multiple burners, you're simmering on slow. This is not a 3-hour. But if you're warming up a meal or making something relatively simple, like a stir fry, I've set up induction stovetops on a lot of small power boats, and now I have one on my boat as a backup. So if I ever lose my propane system, I'm not, and again, maybe Aladino, it's going to resonate with you. I'm like, well, at least I have that. And then in those situations, at least it allows me to warm up a meal because I don't have a microwave on my boat.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're not going to have one either. And then I'm like, okay, well, if something ever happens with my propane system, which could happen. And 1 year on my boat, it was a solenoid, right? My solenoid after a period of time failed, right? And, replacing a solenoid, now I have a spare, but at that time I never thought about having a spare. Yeah. So, when it went down, I lost my heating source, right? So now that's pretty big. Now, yes, I have small propane tanks for the barbecue outside, and I keep that separate on those little small ones, but still, you can't cook everything on the back of a barbecue.
Totally.
So,
I love the idea of induction as a backup.
That's
awesome.
Like it. But we were considering it as the main source if it could replace propane or alcohol, and there we found it challenging because we are not simple cookers. If you do simple meals,
3 times a day, right?
Yes, but exactly, we cook 3 times a day, and dinner is there's quite a bit of emphasis on that. We don't have a generator, so we scrapped that idea. But as a backup, absolutely. When we do have the power, or if we need it, then the engine becomes a generator. And you do have to cook. So the idea is totally valid.
Yeah. And you know what I just did recently? I ended up buying, you can do that now. I ended up searching for pans that were both for gas top and for induction. Yeah. So all my pots and pans on my boat are for both.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So they're both for induction and for gas. So no problem. And now I don't, because I found out the hard way, you need to have an induction pan or pot that's going to work. So I end up changing that. Totally. So it's actually, in the power draw is not that bad. Generally, like, for example, they'll say it's a 1600 watt or 1800 watt model. They'll have different powers. And they're going to say, okay, output from 0 to 15, and you can go in half increments. So it's almost like 30 power levels. And you're generally able to cook at 5 or 6. Like 12 is insane. Like max power is crazy.
Yeah.
And even at 5 or 6 or 3 out of 12 or 3 out of 15 in terms of power draw, maybe it's 100 amps, 70 amps at 12 volts, 110 amps. But the meal is done or warmed up in 3 minutes, 5 minutes. To forget 10 minutes. 10 minutes is max. So it's a good idea to have it as a backup. Yeah, that's what I end up doing. And I learned that I actually was the same. I thought it would be too much. But because I got sort of pushed or encouraged to find a solution for some boaters, I ended up adopting it on my own boat.
That's really interesting. Well, because
it's not expensive.
I've never used induction. So I was just researching it and I saw like 1500 amps, 2000 or watts, 2000 watts. And I was like, oh, that's not going to work. But no, that's a good point. You're not using it at that capacity most of the time.
Never. I'm never even boiling water.
Yeah.
Cooking an egg. You're cooking an egg at 5 or 4.
That's
really it's very low power draw. Making toast in the morning. I've had some owners, they'll milk a grilled cheese. That's a perfect example. Again, 3 minutes, no problem. Battery bank can handle it. Again, if you're in a place where it's relatively sunny, you don't have that many loads, you're not running your lights that long, it's relatively nice. In the summer months, not crazy that you can actually save your propane and run your literally a small little induction stovetop power through an AC outlet, through an inverter to your battery bank, and effectively you're cooking from the sun.
And not heat up the boat.
I love that.
And
honestly, I'm smiling, and it's a genuine, real smile because I'm thinking about my own boat, and I think that's huge redundancy. Because eating, let's be honest, not all meals can be cold. Certain meals can. Certain meals can. I got no problem with certain meals can, and I can even have some chili cold, and I can have cold soup, and I can have a lot of stuff. But not all things are meant to be cold.
No.
No, I really like that idea. I've been thinking about that for a while as a backup. I don't think it will work as our primary cooking method, but as a double with propane, I really like that idea.
Yeah, no, that's why I like the idea of backup, and I'm still designing the best possible propane system at the moment. For example, I'm trying not to have solenoids. Of course, it is then added work and less luxury of flicking a switch, but I will have to manually turn on and off. But I plan on putting the propane right next to the bulkhead, which accesses to the galley, so I can have what are they called? Yeah, you know what I mean. So I can switch on and off right from there without needing